Good evening. Welcome back to the Bitcoin Zodiac. Happy new moon. I hope that the new moon in Cancer is treating you well and that you're really enjoying the depths of Cancer season. I'm not going to lie, it is doing me a little bit dirty in some unexpected ways, but doing my best to just lean into the beauty of Cancer season. So let's get into it. Let's check out what the remainder of Cancer season and this Cancer new moon might have in store for Bitcoin. So really with Cancer season, there is a particular highlight on emotions and emotional well-being. And there's also this really sort of caring and nurturing energy about Cancer season as well. So leaning into those energies, understanding that those energies are going to be heightened, brought to the surface. And because it's the new moon, we're looking at the beginning of the cycle. So the beginning of the cycle, setting intentions, what we want to witness in the remainder of the cycle. But because it's the Cancer new moon, really focusing on our emotional well-being and our emotional healing and new beginnings when it comes to our emotions. So it's a water sign and it's known for its deep emotional sensitivity and nurturing qualities. So there's also a very, very strong connection to home and family at this time. And this new moon really just emphasizes and highlights those themes. So really encouraging new beginnings related to family, related to home, and related to personal security. So expect those areas of your life to be touched at this time. And so you can look at your own particular placements for those, but really under this energy of the new moon, that this is what we can be leaning into. Also, Cancer is a very intuitive sign, and but from an emotional perspective, so offering emotional insight. So it's really a sign that asks us to dig deep and emphasize our emotional intelligence, so really hone our emotional intelligence. So it's a really good time to tune into your inner feelings, your instincts, and really allow them the space to guide your decisions. So as I said, new moon brings new beginnings, and this new moon is an excellent time to set intentions for emotional healing and growth. So really reflecting on your emotional needs and how you can nurture yourself and nurture others more effectively. So it's also a time to consider setting goals related to your home environment, family relationships, and really like your personal living space. So I don't know, this could involve starting new projects at home or moving into a new place, or really strengthening, putting effort into strengthening family bonds. It's also a time for reflection and self-care. Like Cancer is very much about nurturing yourself and nurturing others. So you can use this time to really check into your emotional health, maybe through journaling, through meditation, or even seeking support through a therapist or friends or family members, and just sort of allow yourself to be able to process any lingering emotions, like really honor your emotions and what they're telling you. So oftentimes we find some emotions more uncomfortable than others, but really emotions are giving you information. And so if you're feeling some painful emotions at this time, my thoughts and prayers are with you, absolutely. And I don't want to minimize your pain, but you can really find some inner strength and build resilience in these moments by honoring and really feeling your emotions and allowing them to pass through you and process them in a really healthy way, rather than trying to bypass them or ignore them because they're uncomfortable. And I think one of the things as well that comes with um, observing astrology for a long time is that you start to sort of trust the process, and you start to welcome what the season brings. And so even if this time is uncomfortable for you, it is a really good time to sort of welcome that energy and just have faith and be able to surrender to the fact that, number one, this too shall pass, nothing lasts forever, and also that everything is working together for the highest good. And so even in our times that are really uncomfortable for us, we can know that we are part of something that's much bigger than ourselves, and we can find almost some solace in that, to know that, like, this is the energy of the season. Whatever is coming up is meant to come up. Whatever is meant to happen is meant to happen. And finding some space and some surrender and some grace in that time. So do have a lot of grace for yourself in this time period. Also, give yourself some space, give yourself the opportunity to set some intentions around these topics and these areas that Cancer affects and that Cancer sort of rules. And yeah, allow yourself the space to do that. And also, if you are in a place that is really uncomfortable, know that this too shall pass. And if you are in a place that is very uncomfortable and is sort of beyond the realms of, just in feeling uncomfortable feelings, or a sad time or an emotional time, don't be afraid to reach out to someone, reach out to a friend, reach out to a family member, or go and see a trusted therapist as well. This is a really good time for that, and to be able to have someone else hold space for those emotions and those feelings, and to be able to process them in a really healthy way and honor the season that we're in. And moving more in the direction of Bitcoin, I would say that there are a lot of people with Bitcoin's price action this week. There are a lot of people feeling some big emotions around Bitcoin as well. As I said, we are doing a bit of a deep dive into the depths of the 50s. And we did speak about this in our last episode, and there were some aspects that were indicating some instability before the new moon, and we have seen that. There was a large liquidity level at the 57K mark, and so I did think that if we were going to have a down move, that we could dip into that. And obviously we have gone lower than that, which is lower than I anticipated, to be honest. But we do have a lot of instability and uncertainty in the world. This year is quite interesting. We have a lot of large elections. I think there's 40 different current countries having major elections this year. We've seen India's. More recently, we've seen the UK. We have America coming up at the end of the year. And, markets don't love this kind of insecurity or ambiguity. Markets love certainty. And so these kind of things can cause some instability in the market from bigger perspective. And of course, we're going to dive into some of the aspects that are coming up between this new moon and the next full moon, and how that could be affecting Bitcoin. But in relation to the Cancer new moon and Cancer season, the new moon is always generally a time that we start to see sort of some consolidation or a downward movement. So that's not that out of the ordinary. But during Cancer season, being the Cancer new moon, there are going to be market participants that are feeling some big emotions right now. And if you're one of them, I think what the gift of Cancer season is, and what the gift of this new moon is, and maybe even a really good intention to set, is building some resilience in emotions. And so it's about being able to reflect on your emotions, honor your emotions, but not react to them, and not to drown in them and get lost in them. So it's really being able to find that balance of being able to hold space for your emotions, but not drowning in them and getting lost in them. And definitely, if you are feeling some very strong emotions around the Bitcoin price action at the moment, it may be a good time to step away. observe what emotions are coming up for you and maybe what that is tied to, and where that's coming from, what that brings up for you, what that sort of symbolizes and triggers in you, and taking a bit of a break from the markets, taking a bit of a break from the charts, and finding some grounding in that area, because this is not the time to be reactionary at all. So another aspect that we have on the same day as the new moon is the sun, transiting sun is opposing Bitcoin's natal sun. So when the transiting sun opposes Bitcoin's natal sun, it signifies a period of heightened awareness and a potential conflict between the current state of affairs and Bitcoin's fundamental nature or core identity. So as we're seeing in this price action, this sort of does play into the coming into this aspect. The transiting sun really represents the current energies and the external circumstances. And then you have the Bitcoin's natal sun, which represents the fundamental essence and intrinsic value of Bitcoin. So the tension created by this opposition can lead to increased market volatility, and market participants may experience some uncertainty and lack of clarity during this period, which could lead to fluctuating prices. So the sun's illumination, when the sun, transiting sun, is shining a spotlight on Bitcoin. So it's bringing increased attention from the public, from the media, possibly from the regulators. And, this aspect could bring positive or negative news regarding Bitcoin. But when we sort of look at where we're at in the current price action of Bitcoin, then the news is probably more geared towards the negative, in my personal opinion. I just think that that's probably how that will reflect. And so I would just be aware of that. And it's really sort of a time to recognize like that contrast and that opposition between the current events and the current price action, and also the intrinsic value and the core nature of Bitcoin and what Bitcoin is. So it may bring to light some imbalances or overextensions in Bitcoin. And so this may be a necessary correction where the market adjusts to more sustainable levels. But you want to be aware of this, because you kind of don't want to be caught out in that in the short-term price action. Like it's not a good time to be playing that game. So should be really kind of cautious to avoid making like impulsive decisions, for sure, and also decisions just based on the short-term market movement. So it's a better time to just zoom out and really monitor those larger trends, and be looking at the higher time frames, and just be looking from a more long-term perspective. This aspect also being in Cancer season can create a psychological impact. And this can also lead to sort of a more reactive market environment. So we may see like fear and greed, the extremes of fear and greed, be on display at this time and really be dominating people's trading decisions. So you kind of want to take a step back from that and really sort of view from a much more grounded perspective, and make an attempt to not be making emotionally driven and reactive decisions when it comes to that. So a day later, on the 6th of July, we have Mars quincunx Bitcoin's natal moon. And whenever we're looking at Mars, we're really looking at action, aggression, drive, and initiative. So in financial astrology, it's really speaks to increased activity, volatility, and very like assertive moves, whether that's to the upside or the downside. So the natal moon of Bitcoin also, again, represents emotions, represents public sentiment, and really represents the market mood. So it reflects the collective emotional state of market participants towards Bitcoin. So a quincunx is always an interesting aspect for me because it sort of calls for adjustments and realignments. That it does signify a tension and a misalignment between these energies. And so it's generally a space and an aspect where the market needs to correct imbalances and sort of adapt to new market conditions. So with Mars being in play, this brings like an aggressive, assertive energy that can lead to like a lot of increased trading activity, and possibly a lot of volatility and impulsivity. And then with the quincunx aspect with the moon can cause like then this emotional tension and uncertainty. So the price action could be a bit erratic, and sort of as the market sort of struggles to find some balance during this time. So the misalignment between Mars and the moon can cause like a lot of emotional stress among market participants. And that's totally understandable. And as I said before, if you recognize that this is coming up within yourself, it really is a time to be able to step back rather than getting yourself into a position where you're making like erratic and aggressive moves yourself. So yeah, Bitcoin's price may experience some sudden and sort of like unpredictable swings. And as emotional responses to the markets and events are just amplified during this time. Now, coming into the 7th of July, we have Venus sextile Bitcoin's natal moon. So this is a more positive aspect, and I could see this being a time that we find a little bit of solace and maybe a calming down, a slowing down of the downward movement. With Venus's influence, it's a really like harmonious energy, and it enhances the positive sentiment and an optimism in the market. So it usually leads to increased confidence in the market, and it usually leads to a rise in Bitcoin's price just due to overall favorable market conditions and increased investor interest. But during this time, I don't see any all-time highs coming on the 7th of July. So I just want to put that bit in perspective. But I could see sort of an easing. It has a softer energy to it. And so a bit of an easing to the maybe more aggressive market moves that we've seen in the days prior. So on the 8th of July, we have the Venus quincunx Bitcoin's natal Mars. And so again, we have this sort of like need for alignment, a need for readjustment between these two energies. We have Venus, which represents love and beauty and harmony. And in financial markets, it represents value, what we value, market attractiveness, and an overall investor sentiment. Whereas Mars, again, is action, drive, aggression, and market dynamics. And Mars also really influences trading activity, market moves, and the overall energy within the financial sphere. So where Venus seeks harmony and value, Mars drives aggression, action, and market dynamics. So the quincunx aspect indicates that there may be a misalignment between the perceived value of Bitcoin and the market actions that are currently being taken by investors. So this could really lead to confusion and mixed signals in the market. So the tension between Venus and Mars can create slightly unpredictable market environment. And, we might struggle to balance like value-based decisions with more aggressive trading strategies. So we could expect to see, again, some volatility here as the market reacts to this sort of underlying tension, really leading to like possible erratic moves and, just uncertain investor behavior. So we do really want to have kind of caution around this time, which, to be honest, is the theme of this season. And because Mars's influence really might lead to some market participants to make like impulsive, aggressive moves that are just like not really fully aligned with the overall market sentiment. So on the 10th of July, we have Mars sextile Bitcoin's natal Mars. And, the sextile is a more harmonious aspect, as we said before. And so, again, like Mars driving action, aggressive initiative. And then Bitcoin's natal Mars is then representing Bitcoin's inherent drive and its own assertiveness and its own action-oriented nature. So it influences really like how Bitcoin is traded, its market presence, and the overall sort of momentum of the market. So again, we've got that short-term coming into that like intrinsic core value of Bitcoin. And so the harmonious energy though of this sextile, does enhance the assertive and action orientated qualities of Mars. So this again, as I just said, Mars does lead to increased trading volume and increased activity really, and just like higher transaction volumes in the Bitcoin market. So this period could see some quite substantial moves. And I mean, it is a positive aspect, to be honest. But again, I don't see us like, scaling all-time highs at this point. But it wouldn't be out of the question with this kind of aspect to see something that really takes us by surprise. So just be a little bit aware of that as well. But generally, this is a positive aspect. So if anything, we could get a little reprieve, a little like upward retracement from this down move we've been experiencing. So just sort of like look out for that and be aware of that on that day. On the 11th of July, we have Chiron trine Bitcoin's natal Saturn. And so Chiron, we've spoken about it so much on the Bitcoin Zodiac, is the wounded healer of the Zodiac. And it represents like healing and transformation and wisdom gained through overcoming challenges. And then Saturn represents structure and discipline, responsibility, and long-term stability. So with this trine, it's sort of promoting this positive interactions and opportunities. So when transiting Chiron, forms a trine with Bitcoin's natal Saturn, it generally suggests this period of healing, strengthening foundations, and long-term opportunities in the financial market. So I think with anyone related to Bitcoin, it's like really taking that time to lean into that and looking at these areas that we need to heal, where we need to strengthen our own foundations, and looking for those long-term opportunities. So interestingly enough, Chiron's influence can suggest a period where Bitcoin can heal from past vulnerabilities and sort of strengthen its foundational structures. So I think interestingly, I think that could be aligned more to the decentralization of Bitcoin. We've seen a lot of attention in terms of institutional adoption and people pouring into ETFs with Bitcoin, whereas I think that this area will see more people learning about decentralization, running a node, and strengthening the network in that way. So I think that that's really interesting, a really interesting sort of aspect for Bitcoin. So we could also see Bitcoin addressing previous weaknesses and maybe addressing and overcoming some regulatory challenges or technical issues. And again, it just has the energy of leading to greater stability. Even though it may be a challenging time, it's leading to greater stability and resilience. So that's really the energy of that aspect. On the 12th of July, we have Mercury quincunx Bitcoin's natal Jupiter. So when a transiting Mercury forms this quincunx with Bitcoin's natal Jupiter, it really signifies this time of misalignment between communications and intellect, which is brought by Mercury, and expansion and optimism, which is brought by Jupiter. So it requires like quite a careful navigation of this energy. So Mercury emphasizes data, communication, and short-term thinking. And Jupiter emphasizes growth, expansion, and long-term optimism. So this aspect can create this dissonance between short-term market action, price action, and news, and long-term growth expectations. So we can see this like contrasting behavior there, which will probably be reflected in the price action as well. So market participants might feel conflicted between immediate market data and the overall optimism of Bitcoin. And I don't blame people in this either. Like a lot of people have this like long-term faith that I personally think that, you know, Bitcoin is probably one of the most important technologies of our time. So I have this long-term optimistic view of how Bitcoin is actually impacting and uplifting humanity. Whereas when I look at the charts and the price action is, you know, Bitcoin is bleeding, you know, there's a conflict there. And it, you know, it can make you question, like, have I got this wrong? You know, what is happening here? And so I think that it's perfectly normal to feel that way. I think it's absolutely fine if you do feel that way. It doesn't make you a bad Bitcoiner. But I think just sort of like reassessing. And again, rather than using price action to shape the way that you feel about your long-term perspective on Bitcoin, return to the fundamentals and, you know, watch some episodes with some different Bitcoiners that have this sort of like long-term analysis and long-term perspective of how Bitcoin fits into our financial world, basically. So on the 12th of July, we have Mercury trine Bitcoin's natal Venus. So when Mercury forms this trine with Bitcoin's natal Venus, it indicates actually a period of positive communication. So enhanced market sentiment and more favorable conditions. So again, we might have this period of, you know, we've had a period of people freaking out about the price action, and that's what's dominating the news. And then we might have this period of people coming back to, hang on a second, let's remember why we're here in the first place. And let's have a look at the fundamentals of Bitcoin and all of the positive things about Bitcoin, including its decentralization, its security, and really focusing on those elements. And so Mercury's influence enhances communication and information flow. And then Venus brings in this beautiful, positive and attractive quality to the market. So this harmonious interaction could lead to some positive news, favorable market sentiment, and just increased attractiveness of Bitcoin in general. So that's definitely nice to hear in the midst of all of this kind of like these more challenging aspects. So the trine aspect can make Bitcoin more appealing to investors and, you know, due to favorable communication and just enhanced value perception. So I personally feel that in the midst of difficult things going on, instability around the world in different world governments, all of those sorts of things, in the midst of that, we can still find some positivity in the fundamentals of Bitcoin and the truth of Bitcoin, really. I think it's very easy for us to be distracted in with price action, and realistically the least interesting thing about Bitcoin is its price in US dollars. There's so many more interesting things about Bitcoin, and I think that will probably be the focus during this time, bringing that sort of regained optimism, that regained hope back into the Bitcoin community. And then on the 15th of July, we do have, this isn't actually to do with Bitcoin's chart, but it is to do with the macro environment, is that we have Mars conjunct Uranus, and it's in Taurus. So this is the overall transit that we all will be seeing. So when Mars and Uranus come together in Taurus, which is a fixed sign, associated with stability, value, and material wealth, the combination can have significant impacts. And so Mars again represents action, aggression, and assertive energy. And then we have Uranus, which represents innovation, sudden changes, disruption, and technological advances. So in financial astrology, Uranus really influences unexpected events, market shocks, and revolutionary changes. And in Taurus, which represents stability, value, material wealth, and persistence, and Taurus also governs financial matters, assets, and investments, and everything to do with the ground, gold, real estate, mining. Interestingly enough, on this day, we also have Jerome Powell speaking. So to give a bit of a perspective on that, if you've listened to our past episodes, you will know that I, am really expecting them to begin cutting rates at some point. And the reason I'm so confident that they do that is because they need to roll over their own debt. We are at that point in the debt cycle. And, I am quite shocked, actually, they haven't done that already. And I've been hearing a lot of things around the crypto space, that, oh, you know what, the Fed, they don't know what they're doing. They're idiots. I want to caution people from slipping into that mindset. I would really recommend some humility when it comes to observing the actions of the Fed, because I can tell you one thing for sure, from my own perspective, the people at the Fed definitely know more about what they're doing than I do, and so I can say the same for you. And so I think it's a dangerous position to get into, to just think, oh, well, the Fed don't know what they're doing, and the Fed are idiots, and this is not a healthy place to be. And it can also come from a place of arrogance and lead you to miss things. And really what I would do, if you don't understand the moves of the Fed, which sometimes I don't, I'm not sure why they haven't started pivoting already. But the healthier thing to question or to acknowledge is that their interests are not necessarily aligned to my interests. So we're not looking at it from the same perspective. And so that's why sometimes people are confused by the moves of the Fed, in my opinion, is that they are looking after their own interests, and sometimes your interests align and a lot of times they don't. And so that's going to sort of cause some confusion. But I am expecting a pivot at some point. Jerome Powell has indicated that there probably will only be one rate cut this year, but he also did say that he was never going to raise rates, and he's raised them more than more and faster than I think any time in history. So it'll be interesting to see what he's going to say. We have this interesting aspect of the Mars conjunction with Uranus. And again, Uranus is innovation, sudden change, disruption, and technical advancements. What I do want to caution people as well, and we have discussed this in a previous episode, but it was quite some time ago, is that a lot of Bitcoiners are waiting for that pivot, because it generally leads to once they release that liquidity into the market again, asset prices generally go up. And but historically, they don't actually go up immediately, because when the Fed does decide to cut rates, that is usually an indication to market participants that there is something very, very wrong in the economy, both at home in the US and also globally. So we've seen a lot of different things in terms of the Japanese yen, which is uncomfortable. And so when the Fed does make that move to start to reduce rates again, it can be an indication to market participants that there's something very, very wrong. So usually you will see quite a steep downturn in the markets, and followed by an eventual recovery. So just to be aware that that is kind of like historically how that plays out. Obviously, I'm not a fortune teller, so I don't know how that will play out this time, but that is sort of that is sort of the influence. And I just find it very, very interesting that that Jerome Powell is speaking on the same day as the Mars conjunct Uranus. Um, Wonder what he's going to say. Quite interesting. So I don't know. But yeah, we could see this like disruptive energy of Uranus combined with the aggressive nature of Mars can really lead to some unexpected events or news that can greatly impact the market. So Bitcoin's price may experience quite sharp spikes or drops due to the sudden like market developments, or maybe even regulatory changes. We really don't know, but it is definitely an aspect to be aware of. On the 16th of July, we then have Mercury square Bitcoin's natal moon. And so when that transiting Mercury forms a square with Bitcoin's natal moon, it suggests a period of like, again, heightened emotional tension. So this is just following that Mars Uranus conjunction, Jerome Powell speaking, and then we have this Mercury square Bitcoin's natal moon. So heightened emotional tension, possible miscommunication, and the potential for some quite substantial market instability. So again, like Mercury's focus on information and communication can lead to an overload of market data and news. And then the moon that governs emotions and public sentiment can become like very easily swayed by this like influx of excessive information. So the square aspect can really create some confusion and emotional tensions among market participants, possibly leading to misinterpretation of market news and data, and causing some erratic market behavior. So definitely something to be aware of and be prepared for. Then on the 17th of July, we again have Mercury coming into play. So it's interesting that this is all sort of following that, like Mercury communication, information is all sort of following on from that. So this time it's opposite Bitcoin's natal Mars. And when it forms this opposition with Bitcoin's natal Mars, it indicates, again, a point of heightened activity, potential conflicts, and like dynamic interactions in the financial market. So this aspect can really bring about significant volatility and reactions, particularly affecting Bitcoin, possibly affecting Bitcoin's price. So we have that like communication, information, intellect, and trading aspect coming from Mercury. And then we have that action, aggression, drive, and assertive energy from Mars. So it could really bring like an influx of information, news, and communication, which could lead to like increased trading volatility and activity. But then we have like Mars as this like assertive and aggressive energy to that, driving like possibly high trading volumes, but like maybe extreme moves as well. So really like this opposition really marks a period of like heightened activity and potential conflicts, increased speculative trading, and the need for strategic communication and analysis. That investors should really we should really be quite cautious at this time. And I think that has been the message of this entire episode, really, and this entire period of time. And just be aware of like that we're in Cancer season, so it's heightened emotions. We've got all of these different aspects that are bringing that indication of like increased emotions. We've got Bitcoin's downward price action, which again makes people irrational and emotional. And so I think the theme of this coming into then this full moon, this from this new moon moving down into this full moon, really is about dialing into your own emotions, recognizing what's coming up in you. What is a sudden news event that you didn't expect? How does that make you feel? How do you respond to that? Bitcoin drops a few $1,000s in an hour. How does that make you respond? Bitcoin reverses and goes up a couple of $1,000s in an hour. how does that make you feel? And because this is all really, really useful information when you're engaging with the markets, that you can kind of prepare yourself that like, okay, this is how I respond to this. And so how can I take that step back and make these rational decisions instead of responding to these emotions that are coming up? So have a beautiful, beautiful new moon. Take some time out for yourself, set some intentions, lean into those emotions, good or bad. It's not all bad with Cancer season. I think the focus is always kind of on the heavier, more uncomfortable emotions, but I think it's also really worth dialing into those times when you're feeling really good about something and beautiful things are happening in your life. It's also like, I think we can rush through those too. And so this period of time is also calling you to notice those glimmers and to lean into them and really, live them, experience those beautiful, positive, good feelings and good emotions. So, yeah, I hope that it's not great news. It's not been an episode full of great news, but I hope that I've brought some insight and maybe some balance and some groundedness and maybe some practices that you can take away with you to help you interact with this time in just a positive and I think enriching and expansive way. And yeah, so enjoy this, enjoy your self-care, enjoy your nurturing, and enjoy time with your family. Until next time, see you at the full moon. Peace, love, and Bitcoin.